Hi, everyone. Welcome to our 2024 to 2025 FAFSA workshop. I'm Eric, and I'll be your guide today. Thank you for joining us. We're going to start off with some really quick housekeeping. The info we're providing today is for educational purposes only. We're not offering any financial advice. If you have any specific questions for us, you'll be able to book a 15-minute call with us at the end of the session. So, what is FAFSA? FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. By filling out this form, you become eligible for government grants, scholarships, student loans, and work-study opportunities. Anyone who is a legal resident of the US is able to apply for FAFSA. If you have a social security number, odds are you can apply for FAFSA. So citizens, legal residents, and people with specific immigrant visas are all able to apply. If you're a high school senior, undergraduate student, or graduate student who is a legal resident, you should be applying. By filling out the FAFSA form, you become eligible for a couple different forms of financial aid. Government grants, which are financial aid, do not have to be repaid. FAFSA may open doors to scholarship opportunities that you may have previously been unaware of. To apply for federal student loans, filling out the FAFSA is the first step to acquiring them. We'll talk more about loans in another slide, but just know that this applies to both subsidized and unsubsidized federal loans. Finally, our last category, work study. I think this one is the least intuitive out of all the categories, but essentially, work study jobs are part-time employment positions on or off campus that take your class schedule and financial situation into consideration. For example, if you're perceived to have greater financial need, you may be eligible to work additional hours. All right, moving on to grants. The main federal grant is the Pell Grant, with the maximum award for the 2024 to 2025 academic year being $7,395. Following that is the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, or FSEOG, whose acronym feels just as long as its full name. This awards between $100 to $4,000 and takes into account students' financial needs, as well as the amount of budget the university you are attending has for this grant. As a reminder, grants do not have to be repaid in any capacity and are only awarded based on financial need. Next up is loans. I know this can be scary or overwhelming, so I'm going to try to keep it simple. Both loan types we're talking about here today are federal student loans. FAFSA is required in order to get these federal loans. So why would you want a federal loan over a private loan from a bank? Federal loan rates are lower, so you'll save more money in the long run, and they also offer more flexible payment plans. The two types of federal loans are subsidized and unsubsidized. Subsidized means you won't have to pay off any interest on the loans until you graduate. Meanwhile, unsubsidized loans will be accruing interest the entire time you are enrolled. No payments have to be made for either type of loan until you graduate. Right now, the federal student loan rates are 5.5% for undergraduate students and 7.05% for graduate students. We'll do a quick example so you guys can see the difference between the two. Say we borrowed $40,000 in our freshman year to cover our 4 years as an undergraduate student at a 5.5% interest rate. For our subsidized loan, at the end of 4 years, we're just going to owe the $40,000 that we borrowed. Meanwhile, our unsubsidized loan at the end of 4 years will owe $40,000 we borrowed plus $9,552.99 in interest for a total of $49,552.99, which is basically $10,000 more than what you would pay with a subsidized loan. So I hope that helps highlight the differences a little bit more clearly. Moving on, FAFSA applications open on October 1st of each year. Try to do this as early as possible so you can get it out of the way. So, who fills out and applies for FAFSA? Dependent students must complete the FAFSA form with the help of their parents, who will provide their financial information and also sign off on the form. Independent students must complete the form themselves. Most undergraduate students are dependent students, but if you're unsure, here's a list of all the things that would make you an independent student instead. You're an independent student if you are 24 years or older before January 1st of the aid year. In this case, if you're 24 years or older on January 1st, 2024, congratulations, you're independent. If you're pursuing a postgraduate degree, such as an MBA, MD, JD, or PhD, congratulations, you're also independent. If you're married or a veteran of the armed forces, if you have dependents that receive over 50% of your financial support, or if you're an orphan in foster care or already emancipated, you're also independent. Just as a note, emancipated refers to an individual who is under the age of 18 and has legally been determined to be an adult by a court in their state of legal residence. Not a super common term, and a lot of people have questions about it, so I felt that it was important to highlight what that means. Next, what documents are you going to need? Students will need their social security number. They will need either their driver's license or passport or state ID, and a permanent residence card if applicable. Parents will need to have their previous tax return, records of non-taxable income, and bank statements and investment records to provide proof of their assets. If you're an independent student, you are going to be providing everything you see on the slide. Going a bit deeper into the documents, your tax return or your parents' tax return information will be taken care of by the IRS's data retrieval tool, which makes it so that you don't have to plug everything in manually and saves a ton of time. You'll also have to provide records of non-taxable income, such as Social Security benefits, public assistance, unemployment compensation, child support, and unreported income from jobs outside the US. The last document we're going to take a closer look at is bank statements. This includes savings accounts, checking accounts, trust funds, stocks, bonds, real estate investments excluding your primary residence, and education savings accounts like the 529 prepaid college plans. Now that we've covered some of the more general aspects of FAFSA, let's get into the specifics that apply to the new FAFSA for the 2024 to 2025 academic year. There are three huge differences. The first being the reduction in number of questions asked. From 100 questions in the old FAFSA, we have just 36. Instead of having to plug in all the IRS data by hand, you now have access to the IRS data retrieval tool to do all the hard work for you. And finally, the shift from using the expected family contribution model, or EFC model, to the student aid index, or SAI model. SAI is an index number used by financial aid professionals, calculated by using the information provided in your FAFSA form. The lower your SAI number, the greater your needs, and helps your eligibility for federal grants, scholarships, loans, and work study. To elaborate just a little bit more, this is not a dollar amount value. SAI is a range going from negative 1,500 to positive 999,999. Generally, a high positive SAI means that a family has a high capacity to support a student's education. Meanwhile, a negative SAI indicates a high need for financial aid. Now let's get into the steps to fill out the FAFSA. So, step 1, gather the necessary documents we discussed. Afterwards, create and use an FSA ID. After creating an FSA ID as a dependent student, your parents will have to create one as well. Keep your username and password somewhere safe, as you'll need this every year you submit the form. If you're an independent student who is married, your spouse may need to create an FSA ID account as well. Next, complete the FAFSA form online. Log in with your FSA ID at studentaid.gov. Enter your basic information. Provide financial information for yourself and parents. Use the IRS data retrieval tool to automatically import your tax information. This is what the form looks like. If you notice on the right-hand side of the form, it says who will be filling out each part of the form. This should adapt depending on the questions you answer early on in the form. If you take a look at the right-hand side, on the first page, it'll say student. So the student will be filling this out. If you're a dependent student, the next section you'll be filling out is the parent section. So your parent will log in with their FSA ID and start filling out this section. Let's go into a quick walkthrough of what the FAFSA form looks like. Starting off with the student side, you have to input your student identity information, your student contact information, and your student current marital status. Depending on what you select here, this may mark you as an independent student, so the questions moving forward may change. Next, your student college or career school plans, where you indicate what level of college year you're at. Next, your student personal circumstances, student other circumstances, student unusual circumstances. All of these play a role in determining what questions you'll be asked in the future when it comes to the online version. Following this is the ability to apply for a direct unsubsidized loan only. If your parents are unwilling to provide their financial information, but you as a student don't have an unusual circumstance such as listed in question 7, you can apply just for unsubsidized student loans and will not be eligible to receive the other types of financial aid. Next, family size. This includes how many people live with you. Next, number in college. How many people in your family are attending college? Following this, your student demographic information, how you choose to identify, your student race and ethnicity, and student citizenship status. Following this, your state of legal residence, your parents' education status, and whether your parent was killed in the line of duty as a member of the U.S. Armed Forces. Next, your student high school information, any federal benefits received. For this part, this is what I was talking about earlier when it referred to non-taxable income. Any of these apply towards that category. Next, student filing status, whether or not you filed the 2022 IRS Form 1040 or 1040-NR. Following this is the student 2022 tax return information. All of this will be plugged in automatically from the IRS data retrieval tool if you're filling this out online, which I highly recommend, including your annual child support, student assets, and then finally, colleges. When it comes to ranking which college you put first, it has no impact on the federal aid that is dispersed. However, some colleges take the order that you put them in as priority for how they distribute their own funds. So ideally, if you're planning on going to a school, put that school towards the top. You do not have to be attending, and you could actually still be applying for any of the schools that you list. But ideally, you put the ones that you are more certain you will be attending at the top of the list. To close out, you'll sign off by providing your signature and the date that you signed it, and you'll have completed the student section of the FAFSA. Moving on, if you are determined to be an independent student and you have a spouse, they will fill out similar information as you did, including the IRS data retrieval tool part, showing their 2022 tax return information. At the end, they will also sign off and approve. And if you're an independent student, you're all set. If you're a dependent student, this is where your parent will be filling out similar information to what you did. At the end of filling out the information, they too will sign, approve, and place the date. If it's determined that your parents provide equal financial support, they may also have to provide their information as well. And now, once they sign, you'll be completely finished with your FAFSA form. Going back to our presentation, the next step is to review and correct errors. Before submitting the FAFSA, review that all the entered information is correct and ensure that all required changes are made. Going through this really quick, these are the top 5 common errors we see on the FAFSA. Number 1, not submitting the FAFSA form. Number 2, not reviewing the information before sending it. Number 3, not reporting changes in your financial situation. Number 4, omitting financial information. And number 5, not using the IRS data retrieval tool. Finally, once you've reviewed everything, sign and submit the FAFSA. The student and one of the parents, if the student is dependent, must sign the form. Submit the form online and save a copy of your information. So what happens next? The student will receive a confirmation message once they submit the FAFSA form. A few days later, the student receives the Student Aid Report, SAR, summarizing the provided information and showing the SAI. This is the time to check for errors and correct them by accessing the FAFSA page again. There may be additional verification needed. Going through this really quick, this is what a completion notification looks like. Something that you'll see after 3 days is the SAI score that you got. And this tells you, once again, how much aid you're available to receive. And finally, the financial aid offers from the universities will arrive. Before we conclude, I want to guide you through really quick the aid estimator from the studentaid.gov website. This is the official website for the FAFSA organization, the U.S. Department of Education. Starting with the aid calculator, we're going to go off of the average demographics for students applying to their freshman year of undergraduate school. So for the student's date of birth, we're going to go with January 1st, 2006. The student's marital status will be unmarried. We are in Florida, so we'll be placing that as the state. And when the school year begins, their grade level will be freshman. Student personal circumstances. Does the student have children or other dependents that they support? We're going to go with no. What are the student's personal circumstances? Is the student currently serving on active duty or a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces? We're going to say no. At any time since the student turned 13, were they an orphan? We're going to say no. At any time since the student turned 13, they were in foster care or a ward of the court? We're going to say no. The student is or was a legally emancipated minor or in legal guardianship? We will say no. The student is unaccompanied and homeless? Also no. So none of these are going to apply. Following this, parents' marital status. Going again off of demographic data, we're going to say no. And do the student's parents live together? No as well. Did one parent provide more financial support than the other over the last 12 months? We're going to say yes. And has this parent remarried? No. So only this parent will be filling out the information. Their legal state of residence will be Florida as well. And their family size is going to be just the two of them. Did the student's parents file taxes in 2022? Yes. Parents' income. We're going to go with the median income of those in South Florida, which is $28,772. And the parents' total assets are going to be $20,000. How much child support did the parent receive, is any? And the answer is going to be 0. Did the student file taxes in 2022? We're going to say no. And at the end, it gives you the estimated federal student aid, $14,876. The federal Pell Grant, they're eligible for the maximum, $7,395. They're able to get $5,500 in direct loans and an average work-study fund of $1,981. Their estimated SAI is negative 1,500, putting them at the maximum financial aid that they can receive. And with that, if you have any questions, Educación for All is hosting free 15-minute private sessions. Please contact us at info@educacionforall.org. or visit our website, www.educacionforall.org.